Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Kindle the Bonfire Podcast with me, LHudson.
And I'm Indigo Gaming.
And you can find us at youtube.com/LHudson and youtube.com/Indigo Gaming Channel or indigogaming.net. Today is the 22nd of April. How are you doing?
Very well. How about you?
Doing well. I've just had a pizza.
Indeed. Now you're making me want to have a pizza.
Yeah, well, it's God knows how. Actually, it'll be about 6 o'clock over there, won't it?
Yep, 6:30. So
it's not too late. After you're done, just pop online and order. I mean, that's what I did. Granted, it came 15 minutes late.
Domino's.
Yeah, and it gave me one of the most depressing meal deals of all time, which kind of sounds like a Valentine's Day joke to the singles, upon reflection. In fact, I'm quite surprised that they haven't even done that they haven't done that on Valentine's Day.
Before we get into the podcast, let everyone know what what they called your particular combo. That was pretty entertaining.
Oh God. Okay, so I'm on my own at the moment, and I thought, you know what, guilty pleasure. Let's just have a pizza. So I got not necessarily a 3-courser, but I just got a small pizza with potato wedges and a drink because I'm a fat fucker that needs to go to the gym again. And the system has a nice, lovely alter meal deal. So you don't. So if you get something that is exact of what one of their meal deal contains, it automatically sorts it out for you, which is nice. So my 3-piecer was part of that, and they called it the Home Alone meal deal.
Comes with a flamethrower and a trapdoor on the side.
Jesus Christ! Of all the names you can give it, you had to pick the one that kind of insults you, kind of taunts you. Yeah, you're home alone, you're having a pizza. You got nothing else to do today. It's Sunday. It's Sunday, and they're saying that I have nothing better to do but to eat pizza.
That's pretty awesome. So how about you explain what your goal for the podcast is, or what your theme of the podcast is?
So I've been trying to do something like this for a while, and I talk to you quite often, like every few days, don't I?
Yep, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and it almost turns into quite an animated discussion that sometimes ends with screaming, and you came up with the idea to do a podcast on this because we managed to go back and forth quite well on several subject matters, and why not? It's the first time doing it, so it's a bit rough around the edges, but like with good RPG mechanics, like with good RPG games, the further you get used to the controls and learn more things, the more cleaner your execution will be.
That's fitting, since the Dark Souls-inspired podcast name, seems fitting.
Yeah. Just to make this clear, this isn't a Dark Souls podcast. We might talk about Dark Souls on it. We are not the Dark Souls of podcasts or the podcasts of Dark Souls. I'm sure there are many others like that out there. We are simply reflecting. Well, we're not really reflecting on anything. We're comparing it to sitting around a campfire, like in Dark Souls, when you sit around sit around the bonfire, and you sometimes see phantoms. And since we're sharing stories, it seems suitable, and we couldn't think of anything other than bonfires in terms of campfires. So here we are.
Yeah, the only correlation would be that you may lose your humanity after watching this.
Well,
all right.
Well, they'll probably lose it if they're watching this. It's just going to be a screen with waveforms on it.
Exactly.
So, you probably shouldn't watch it. You should probably listen to it while playing an MMO, a good one, preferably.
Exactly. Maybe down the road we'll do a face cam. I've got the equipment for it, but depending on if we're on an off day, we might just keep it Keep it audio. Keep it simple.
Yeah, well, I kind of want to lose weight because I'm in perfect shape, and that shape is a circle at the moment. So, because unfortunately, when I eat, it always goes to my tartars and my face, and not my legs. And I wish it would go to my legs because I use my legs quite a lot for work.
So what's our first topic?
Okay, so what have you been doing this week? Since Monday specifically.
Monday, I was setting up my live stream, and I usually always do really complicated or annoying things for my live stream. So this time I was doing setting up an emulator and modifying the emulator through Reshade, which is kind of like a SweetFX or any of the other, kind of like ENB or any of the other mods where you can inject graphics modifications into a pre-existing game. So I was getting a new Dreamcast emulator to work on Shenmue. I was doing all sorts of mods for that, and then I live streamed that on Wednesday. And since I've been basically working on my next video, recording footage, and the video's going to be a big one, possibly my biggest, and spanning something like 24 years of games. So yeah, just recording footage, everything like that. I've already kind of teased it on my my Twitter channel. It's about the Elder Scrolls, so not really a secret anymore, but yeah, it's a lot to dig through. So I'm starting on that, script writing and footage and all sorts of things like that. So
yeah. I believe the longest your video in terms of timescale, like examining the timescale, it was Fallout, wasn't it? Because that went back to 95, didn't it?
Yeah. Let's see. The first Fallout was 96, I believe. Technically the longest one longest in terms of a scale was my Final Fantasy. I think that one went all the way back to the first game, which was 1989, I believe. Yeah.
I think it was 1986 originally. Let me look this up.
Or 1987, right? Because weirdly enough, Final Fantasy VII was 1997, so it was exactly 10 years later. 1987, I believe.
Okay,
but,
do not type Final Fantasy Wiki on Google because you're just going to get their yeah, just at the tail end of 87.
Yeah, and so weirdly enough, Final Fantasy VII was pretty much exactly 10 years later, roughly speaking, and although that's, it goes into its evolution over the years, and then it doesn't really get it too much into the remake because we don't know a whole bunch about that. And I generally do retrospective or analytical content. I don't do speculation much on my channel. So we were doing the speculation about the remake on my collaborator's channel, Downward Thrust. But I think that's the largest scale technically because it started in the 80s, but that's roughly, but yeah, it's one of my biggest, those are two of my biggest videos, the Fallout video and the Final Fantasy video. And this is looking to be around that scale. So exciting. Yeah,
I think, the largest scale videos I did was just consisted of me shouting angry at a video game that's not very good, or in the case of Bloodborne, fawning over it, and that particular video has not aged well. It is aged horribly.
It's kind of hard to those are some of the trickiest games to get into. That's why I've not touched the Soulsborne series, because it's such a high skill cap, so much to learn, and very little of it is immediately apparent in the game. So much of it is like devised from, obscure lore and whatnot. So
I think you'll have a much easier time getting into Bloodborne because there's a lot less to learn, and it's a lot more straightforward. Like, you don't have to take too many stats into account or too many weapons, and as such, you can kind of blitz through it. It's not high fantasy where there's like all these elements that goes into one thing: resistance, vitality. It's quite like in comparison to Dark Souls, it's a lot more simple or a lot more dumbed down, but it works. It works quite well. So
it's a lot more streamlined. Yeah, I noticed I played all of them. I haven't played much of Dark Souls 3, but I played technically all the Soulsborne games. Somewhat, not all the way through, but I did notice that they definitely, we're on the topic, definitely streamlined the streamlined the stat and skill system, but they didn't do like a Skyrim on it. They didn't just like axe it.
No.
They just kind of cut, trimming fat mostly. They didn't, I don't think it's really dumbed down so much as just simplify or streamlined so much,
Yeah. I think what it is that they took a look at it and said, right, it's going to be a bit fast paced for this particular setting. What would suit it and how can we properly do it? So,
definitely.
And it works quite well, except for the frame rate.
Yeah, the frame rate definitely drops. It definitely chugs, and not as bad as obviously that one notorious place, the city or whatever it was in Dark Souls 1. I forget what it is now, but
Blighttown.
The Blighttown, right? That was pretty rough.
I replayed it on PC a couple of weeks ago, and even with my setup, it still chugs. And this thing can run Siege smoothly. Yeah,
I know it's totally just an engine limitation and just a badly optimized area, but
yeah.
It is interesting. So before we get too far into Dark Souls, because I know it's your favorite franchise, basically, what have you been doing this week?
Okay, well, aside from weeping over something I am working on, I've just been playing Banished and Dynasty Warriors 8.
Banished is good.
Yeah, like I thought about kind of like medieval stuff. I watched this video series about The Hobbit, and I thought, you know what, I'll give Banished another go. It's been a while, but it was one of my favorite games of their respective year. I believe it was released in 2013, which was a really, really bad year for games, and it was one of the shining beacons. It was one of the first games that I remember watching a video series for and immediately wanting it, but not being able to get it. It wasn't like Minecraft, where I saw a video after an initial release. Yeah.
2013 was, most people don't remember, but it was the new console generation thing. So that was every other headline was, PS4 or Xbox One, this, that, and the other. So didn't really do wonders for every other game. But yeah, I really like Banished. It had an interesting, very rare in a lot of strategy games now, or any game in particular, where you actually get really attached to your little characters and the names and stories and stuff like that. And speaking of losing humanity, everybody dies in that game. Everybody dies.
Minor correction, 2014.
Oh, sorry. Okay, we'll skip all that. 2014 was after the console launch. It was definitely during it was late 2013. So that was when all the second wave of new console games came out.
No. 2014 was when the PS4 released, and I know that because Wolfenstein. Actually,
nope, it was 13. I know for a fact. I waited in line for that.
Oh no! What it was is that I got it a year after the fact. Actually, no, I didn't. No, I got one of the launch versions with Killzone Shadowfall.
Yeah, that was actually a surprisingly good game, actually. I liked it.
I couldn't really get into it. I played 2 hours of it. I thought it was all right, and then I played Resogun for a bit.
Oh, that game was actually surprisingly good.
That was awesome.
Am I crazy? No, I think you... No. Let's see. No, 13? Yeah, it's 2013. For some reason, Google's confused, but yeah, no, it was 2013. November, yeah. I was in line at a GameStop. I'll never do that again.
Yeah, I distinctly remember playing Wolfenstein: The New Order that year. It was a really terrible year for 2014, personally. The worst game of the year was something that insulted me personally. Guys of the Wolf came out. That was absolutely hilarious.
Helps to have a map.
Good evening, my lord.
But the memes make it worth it. I watched the research stream that Total Biscuit did, and then I watched his review, and that's like, if there's a few videos on YouTube that you need to watch if you're into like gaming analysis and reviews and stuff like that, those are two of the ones you need to watch. That is like some of the most entertaining stuff. Like, honestly, Total Biscuit isn't even like a Let's Player. He doesn't do that kind of thing, but those were so entertaining because it was like watching someone lose their mind in slow motion. It was just like, why is this?
Well,
how is this?
Yeah. Well, I got that from when I was watching an Omicron stream, but we'll talk a little bit about a particular person behind that, maybe in a future installment. Especially considering Detroit's Become Human is coming out next week. no, not next week, next month. Yeah, alongside that, Dynasty Warriors 8. I blitzed through the entire Shu campaign along, as well as going through the hypothetical, the hypothetical timeline, which is pretty. It's a pretty neat way to encourage replayability. And one thing that it made me realize is that Dynasty Warriors 9 is paced horribly. Like, really, really horribly.
Yeah, they went all open world with that one, right? They kind of just broke the pacing and just said, hey, people like going around to random places and checking off, tick boxes, so let's do that, basically.
Yeah, but they didn't understand the nuance of a good open world. I mean, at least Ubisoft open worlds, they feel dense in detail. I mean, there's a lot of things that look and feel like they were chucking darts at a piece of paper on the wall that contained the game world map, but at least they felt like worlds that could be inhabited.
Well, the thing with the Ubisoft games is that there was a while where I was out of games, so I kind of have a little bit of a blank spot in some years. But the one that I really technically I guess it was Far Cry, but the one that really set the Ubisoft standard, I think, was Assassin's Creed. Yeah, that one kind of set the tone and the theme for many of the future games. But the thing is that game was designed from the ground up as an open world game. Yeah. So they have all the mechanics in place to, the whole idea is that you're supposed to embrace the open world. You're supposed to, sneak through towns and not get caught, blend in with crowds, find targets to do X thing with and stuff like that. Like it was designed around the world. The world wasn't designed around it, basically. Like,
yeah. That's kind of a good way to describe DW9. Like the open world was there for the sake of it and wasn't really integral. I mean, there was it was arguably the biggest missed opportunity that sacrificed the whole thing, and as a result, it just made me really sad. I decided to go back and play Dynasty Warriors 8, and it made me very happy because it was nice and cheesy. God.
Yeah, it's interesting. Remember that there was a couple of years there where every game went open world. Like even freaking one of my favorite franchises for racers, Burnout. Burnout went open world with Burnout Paradise, which I did not like personally. I love the old Burnouts, but I didn't like having to drive all the way back to some place to do another race. Like driving in a dead pedestrianless, raceless city isn't all that exciting to me. So I think that really wasn't the best idea for that series. But conversely, I thought that something like one game that did that same idea very well was Need for Speed Rivals. It was another racing game, but what they did is they basically procedurally put cops and criminals into the same world with you. It was almost like a Destiny sort of thing where they would randomly pluck people in and out of your game, and it was really fun because you had something to do with the open world. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. But yeah, if game isn't designed around that element, it just ends up becoming busy work. Just going from point A to point B just takes longer. Yeah. So
yeah. I mean, you can fill your open world with as much detail as you want, but it needs to feel diegetic. I mean, one of my favorite open world games is Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and about 90% of the world is water.
Yeah.
And it felt, oh God, it's the word I'm looking for.
Feels organic. Like it feels, it feels real. Like I love, like I actually like when you're coasting on the water and you hear guys just bust out one of those really, really, really well done pirate shanties. Like I actually got like a tear in my eye a little bit. Like it felt like I had kinship with those people. I mean, it's a terrible Assassin's Creed game, but it's an amazing...
It's an amazing pirate game, but considering the formula for Assassin's Creed at the time was so, like, really predictable, bog standard. I mean, I played Revelations. I just thought it was all right. Assassin's Creed 3 bored the crap out of me.
Yeah, I didn't really get very far in that one. Revelations I barely got into. I just kind of gave up at that point. I played 3. 4 actually got me interested again in this series, and 4 was actually amazing because 4 convinced Ubisoft that they're like, oh wait, this is a different game, but it's a really good game. So I think right after 4 they started working on Skulls and Bones, I think, which is their new game that's coming out pretty soon.
Yeah,
which is going to be like a full-on pirate game, just like shedding the pretense of Assassin's Creed, just going to be full-on pirating, which I'm really looking forward to, actually.
I think the development cycle of that game is that they designed this super complex ship mechanic, and they were like, we kind of need to make the most of this because it was quite expensive, and they kind of hit a gold mine with Assassin's Creed 4, and, well, what better way to do it than to expand it?
Yeah, it seems so random.
Ubisoft smells money like a pig smells truffles.
Yeah, it was the weirdest thing. I think somewhere along the conversation of Assassin's Creed 3, which they redesigned the engine and all that stuff and the combat and stuff for, they were like, well, this is about, colonial America. This got to have the Boston, got to have the Boston Tea Party, whatever. That's got to be part of the thing, right?
Yeah, and so this is more of an American thing. Like this is more of a you history than a my history thing. So you might spout out terms that I'm not too familiar with, but I am familiar with the Boston Tea Party. It was chucking tea into the sea, wasn't it?
It was one of the biggest catalysts of the British-American Revolutionary War. So yeah, it was something about taxes, and I don't pretend to be a historian, but yeah, basically a bunch of Yanks, jumped onto a boat and spilled a bunch of tea, which, to put that in perspective, tea, we think of tea now, it's like, oh, a little bag that we, get free at the concession stand or whatever. But back then, literally tea at its peak is literally bigger than the drug trade today. It was one of the biggest exports in the entire world. Yeah, it was crazy.
It's accounted for, I believe it was upwards of 60 to 75% tax revenue in the United Kingdom. It was that popular here. I mean, it still is, but it's it's not as exotic as it was back then.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not nearly as. I mean, English people definitely like a cupper every once in a while, but the idea that it's like a world defining trade, it's not today. It's definitely not. But at the time, it was a big deal. So the idea that a bunch of tea was purposely spilled into the harbor or whatever was kind of a big deal. So I'm thinking that, this is all speculation, but I think that somebody at Ubisoft was like, okay, we got to have the Boston Tea Party. That was what the event was called. So we've got to have boats. And so they probably spent all this time building this whole boat system. And then they didn't really have much to do with it because they were all like little mini games.
Yeah. It was pretty throwaway stuff as well. Like,
yeah, it was very random throwaway stuff, but luckily somebody had the good sense of like, hey, wait a second, how about we make a game about boats? And so Assassin's Creed 4, arguably the least assassiny and creedy game of them all, but arguably the most fun, I mean, the guy isn't even he isn't even an assassin. That's the thing. Like, that's the kicker. He isn't even an assassin.
He's just a guy that stole a coat, and that was it. Yeah. It's like, wait, what's this? Yeah, fancy coat, sweet. And he chucks away the hidden blade as well. Like, he just looks at it and goes, nah, and just throws it to the side.
Yeah, it's wild, right? It's so weird. Like, I was like, this isn't to do with anything, because I think I started playing Assassin's Creed like in 08 or 09 or whatever, like pretty quickly after it was released, and I love the original, and the second one was also really, really, really good.
Yeah.
Like, it's I can't decide which one I like more. I think that obviously Ezio is probably the best character of the series, but I think one had definitely a sense of danger that the second one was missing, and then that sense like was even more degraded over the series, where you became super overpowered. Like, I think by the time Brotherhood and Revelations came out, you were doing like 20 or 30 kill chains regularly early on in the game or something like that. It was just like ridiculous. So
I remember specifically in Revelations that one of the upgrades you can have for your hidden blade was poison, and it would kill them instantly. And I took a look at what it currently was and what it could be, and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to upgrade this. And the reason why is because if you do, like the hidden jab with the poison, like you just walk past a guy and you just jab them.
Yeah.
And it takes them a few seconds for them to even notice, because having a knife stabbed at the back is something you don't notice. And after about 5 seconds, they start like getting dizzy and they start swinging their sword around and causing a scene like a drunkard. And I found like a real sick sense of joy from it. I was like, I just poisoned you.
Yeah, that was actually really cool. Yeah, I like that, where you could very sneakily poison somebody and then watch them like flail about, pull out their sword and get all crazy.
Yeah.
And that would create a distraction. Like those are things that Assassin's Creed needed more, I think. Like the original was actually mechanically very, very similar to Thief the Dark Project. Like instead of hiding in the darkness, you hide in crowds or pretend to be, some sort of, pious, cleric or whatever, put your hands up or whatever. And it was a bit silly at times, but they were going for the same idea where it wasn't about how many baddies can I stab with my sword. It was about, luring people out, separating people from the pack, taking them out one by one, and then getting to your goal as stealthily as possible. And they kind of lost track of that. And by the time their boats are involved, it's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, true.
But the boats are amazing, but yeah, they just completely lost track of their thing. But
I think I remember there being some sort of underground city in Revelations, and I thought to myself that this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Why would you like immaculately design this area that was quite large and only use it once and never return to again?
Yeah, that's always weird when you see when it actually kicks you out of the game, you're like, whoa, something was cut in this game. Like you see something, it's like, there's no way they did all this just for this one scene. I had that a lot with Final Fantasy 15, actually. I'm like, whoa, there's something missing here. This was not supposed to be this. There was a lot more here that we're not seeing.
Yeah, like when they went to what's that city in the middle of the ocean called? The Point of No Return. What's it called? The one where you fight Leviathan.
Oh, yeah. That was so weird. I don't remember the name. I could Google it, but yeah, that city that was like out of time, where you could go back to it at any point in time.
Yeah,
and have those, the arena and stuff like that. Like that was such a weird detour. Like the way the whole game's structured, it was obviously huge points were cut out of it, which is really disappointing because I actually loved the game. It was really, despite how broken it was, there was moments where were incredibly well done.
Yeah,
but the pacing and how jarring the surgical, incisions were when they fixed the story are just so noticeable. They're still working on the story, which is admirable, but kind of weird.
Well, I think there's a lot of potential doing it that way. I mean, the next episode is apparently on the villain, and I personally believe that the villain of Final Fantasy 15 is arguably the best villain in the entire series, bar Kefka.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually replaying Final Fantasy 6 with my my fiance right now. We're playing actually earlier today, and that game's amazing. I love Kefka. He's the most successful Final Fantasy villain ever. I mean, he succeeds in what he's trying to do. Oh. No other villain can really,
He's just a crazy guy.
Yeah, he's literally the Joker in Final Fantasy. He's like, crazy guy wants the world to burn, literally. So, he's great that way.
And guess what? He makes the world burn. Oh, spoilers.
Yeah, but yeah, that game's still great after all this time. 24 years old and still amazing. The soundtrack's excellent. Characters are excellent.
24 years old?
Yeah, 94.
Jesus Christ, I feel old.
But definitely, and I thought 15 actually was probably the most interesting Final Fantasy I played since 7, actually, weirdly enough. But yeah, it obviously had some big things cut.
Yeah, something I've been seeing in Final Fantasy was normally you'd have like a villain get teased right in front of you, and the last boss fight turns out to be this god thing that comes out of nowhere. Like in Final Fantasy X, it was a tack.
Yeah,
like it was like a little termite insect thing that they said was the most powerful thing in the universe. Look, I haven't played 10 in a while.
But it was whatever that was it Sin or something like that? The big water monster thing?
Yeah. I mean, you get to fight Sin like a few times. Climb to the top, and it turns out to be this little insect thing. Yeah, and then there was
that's weird.
And then there was Final Fantasy 13. Oh boy.
I actually intend to playing that. I haven't played through all that yet, but
oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy, Final Fantasy 13.
I actually have a theory. I have a theory that for several years, Final Fantasy just kept on ripping off Chrono Trigger. There's weight to it. Final Fantasy VII had the whole everybody loves Gold Saucer, right? With all the mini games and stuff. That's totally the Millennial Fair. Millennial Fair happened first. Sin is totally Lavos. Totally Lavos from Chrono Trigger. So like Chrono Trigger got like I think 2 million sales, which was decent. Final Fantasy VII got like 13 million sales or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I think they were like, let's just borrow some great ideas from this little game that not everybody played because it was released really late into the SNES cycle.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they're all good games. They all took different routes and stuff like that. Oh yeah, there's a motorcycle racing sequence in Chrono Trigger as well that Final Fantasy VII did later.
Oh god. Yeah, I just got a flashback to the Chocobo racing.
Oh god, yeah.
No. The Chocobo, specifically the Chocobo racing in Final Fantasy 13-2, because they fucked it up.
Oh no.
How do you fuck up Chocobo racing? And
Final Fantasy 13 is just overall this is a misunderstanding of the entire series, personally. But
oh Jesus Christ! Oh God, there was.
But in interest of not driving you insane, what's our next topic so we can get back on track? I could talk about this stuff all day. I don't mind, but
yeah, I just had this like urge to scream because of the Chocobo Fair. Like they had this nicely detailed Chocobo Fair in 13, and you just walk down the corridor. You don't play any mini games, and there's no Chocobo racing in the Chocobo Park.
It's just window dressing.
Yes,
that's terrible. What a missed opportunity.
It's fucking awful.
Yeah, after I was interested in 13 for a while, but after I saw like the early gameplay stuff, like it was literally corridor for most of it. Like I've never seen a game so transparently a corridor, linear story. Like there are parts where it actually was just a long, like not even wide, but just like a long straight line where you have to go from one place to the other. And I'm like, whoa, what happened? You know?
Sometimes the line strafes off, but it will lead you to only minor treasure. You gotta get back onto the corridor, back onto the hallway.
But I was actually surprised. Yeah, like they say that I think like 70 after 70% of the game opens a bit, but like that's it's
a bit late. Like
yeah.
20 hours and the game gets good. Well, why can't the game be good now?
Yeah, exactly.
So right, so that's what's been happening.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 13. We're at next level cutting edge topics. So,
but anyway, speaking of corridors, God of War.
Right. So have you played this yet?
I have not played it, but it's been very hard not to witness the response it's been having.
Yeah, it's there's probably some name for this already, but it's the it's the overhype effect. You know, like if you're not enjoying the thing directly, you're gonna hate it because everybody says it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I off mic we were talking about perfect parallel to this was Last of Us.
Yeah,
I think actually also in 2013, if I remember correctly. Was it 12 or 13?
It was 2014 actually. Let me check.
No, 14 was after the release, after the console release. No, it was June, right? It was about a half year before the PS4 came out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was 2013.
2013. Yeah. It was one of the last big hit of that year, yeah.
What the hell years have I been looking... Okay, so...
But yeah, I remember that year we had 2 big exclusives. We had Last of Us, which was a great game, and Beyond Two Souls.
Let's
not hurt LHudson's.
I have to. I need to start playing that. Like, I've got it right here. It's actually my drawer, actually, because I got Beyond Two Souls and Heavy Rain for the cheap. Because I thought, hey, I need to put my soul to rest.
So I think we've all played the same games. Like I think you might be more familiar with Omicron, but I've played all the David Cage games, all the Quantic Dream games, except for Omicron. I've not played much of that. I did play like the intro, but yeah. To put it in perspective, if you're watching, obviously you're watching this on LHudson's channel. He doesn't really like David Cage's designs,
and that's putting it lightly.
But I enjoy his games, despite the silly moments and broken mechanics sometimes. But yeah,
I need to ask myself this: why did I say I'd do Beyond Two Souls? Why did I say at the end of my Heavy Rain video, after enduring 9 months of torture, writing, recording, playing, replaying it again and again and again, just so I can get multiple pathways sorted, including the 7 or God knows how many endings, like ending pathways, and even more ending cutscenes on top of that, to the point that I needed a spreadsheet just to know what direction I had to go in to effectively get the cutscenes in the shortest amount of time. I said, fuck, yeah, after all that, I said I would do Beyond Two Souls. Why? Why did I do that? Why, after all that, during editing, during recording, during December, knowing that it is going to take forever, why did I get it in my head that I should do Beyond Two Souls after nearly suffering a mental breakdown just trying to wrap my head around Heavy Rain?
Despite all your rage, you're still playing David Cage.
Yes. and yeah, I'm going to be playing Detroit Become Human next month. Spoilers. Because this is what happens when you get into the David Cage hole. Like, no matter how bad it gets, you're kind of suffering from Stockholm Syndrome, except it's not you loving it, it's you hating yourself that you chuck money.
You start seeing little X's and circles and square prompts floating above your head at all times. It's a known condition. But yeah, I'd agree. Of the ones I've beaten, which is Fahrenheit for you, I think, Indigo Prophecy for me, Heavy Rain, and Beyond is definitely the weakest of those 3.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing about Fahrenheit Indigo Prophecy is that at the halfway point, you're like, oh my god, what is happening? To the point that you can sort of ironically enjoy it, because it gets so insane with all these Dragon Ball Z flying fights against cult leaders.
But no, like I actually, like 3/4 through the game, it's like one of the best, obviously got some issues, but in my opinion, one of the best thriller with the tinge of like sci-fi and stuff like that in there. Is it's got like the spoilers, got the Area 51 stuff or whatever it was. I haven't played for years.
Yeah,
but,
that was.
But like the last quarter just goes absolutely bonkers. Like up until that point, it's fairly grounded. But then it goes absolutely bonkers.
It started with a phone call. Literally a phone call. And the whole apartment tries to kill him. Like every microscopic object was flying towards him in an attempt to kill him. and after failing, the piece of furniture disappears.
I don't even remember that part. I must have blocked it out. I remember the Dragon Ball Z stuff, but yeah, I don't know. It's like that needed a last act rewrite. Like the stuff building up to that, like even if you don't like the game, I think you'd agree that it's pretty compelling stuff. Like the whole intrigue of the murder at the beginning, you know, the having to hide the evidence before the cop finds out. Like that stuff's all in a better game. That'd be like amazing stuff. Yeah. You know, even as rough as that game is, especially now, I still found it really interesting. Like they did cool things with camera work. You know, they had multiple, you know, they cut your, you know, camera into a couple of slices and they showed like what the cop was doing in the other room. And that sort of tension there was really good. I think that was, if they worked more on that kind of thing, that would have been really, really interesting. But yeah, instead of the third act, it's just wild. Yeah, I
think Siren Blood Curse did something like that, as well as Deadly Premonition.
And Deadly Premonition obviously was a few years later. I mean, yeah, PS3 opposed to the original Xbox or whatever. But yeah, I haven't played Siren, but I'm sure other games have done it. But I think that one did it as well or better than any other game at that point. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely flaws, and as a game, it's not particularly in depth. But he definitely tried to do something different, and I kind of applaud that game, despite the fact that it was a little bit too different in the last act. But what are your thoughts on Detroit? Have you watched much of Detroit?
I've watched little snippets of it, and especially the first gameplay trailer where it's all about choices, and at the back of my head, I'm thinking, going for the choices. But I know exactly how this is going to go out. It's going to branch out again, and then it's going to narrow itself down to a very few specific corridors at the end, because that's how David Cage games work.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it. I can't really judge. It's definitely more Heavy Rain, Indigo Prophecy / Fahrenheit than Beyond Two Souls, which is good. I think Beyond Two Souls actually suffered with its sort of Pulp Fiction-esque, you know, non-consecutive narrative. What is that? Anachronistic, whatever it is called.
Non-linear.
There you go. Yeah, non-linear narrative. And the fact that they really hung it on the main character's voice acting, which, you know, it's fine, I guess. But
I'd say it's more Memento than Pulp Fiction.
Sure. Yeah. That's a good comparison. Great.
Like in terms of presentation, not in terms of quality.
No. Memento was one of the best movies ever. But
and speaking of one of the best movies ever, God of War.
Ooh, shots fired.
Yeah, well, I haven't played it. I have seen I have seen part one of a playthrough, but what I am seeing, it's not gonna be my cup of tea. It's giving me Order 1880-16 flashbacks, not because of the quality of the overall game. It could be. It could be one of the slow starting things, but word of warning, the best way for me to completely switch off from your game is to have the introductory moments, the hook, the thing, that, like arguably the most important part of the game in terms of audience engagement, is to have me walk down corridors while exposition is being spouted, because to me that is the modern day unskippable cutscene, just walking and walking and walking, and it's given me Order 1880-16 flashbacks, which was about 60 to 70% walking, and that's the vibe I'm getting with God of War. But like I said, it could be just the introductory stuff. I like you have agreed with me before, Indigo. It's given me some Last of Us flashbacks, like not just in terms of presentation, but in terms of reception.
Yeah, I definitely, huge Last of Us. Well, sorry, let me speak English. Huge Last of Us flashbacks. Same thing. Like they even have the same marketing tactic where they just coat the wall with 10 out of 10s. and don't
make it a feels-a-thong with a small child involved.
Yeah, the father figure themes, the darker, grittier. Honestly, Last of Us was basically Uncharted, darker, grittier. I mean, I love the game, but that was basically their push. But they had the decency of they had the balls to make a new franchise, whereas God of War basically pivoted off of really well-known, game franchise, God of War, and made a completely different type of game out of it. I mean, from what I could tell, it bears some resemblance, but is very, very different, much slower, much more methodical than the over-the-top, swinging giant, daggers on chains, cutting giant gods' heads off.
Having sex with randos.
QTEs and stuff. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's a definitely different tone, different pace, different everything like that. And also
it's a very masculine franchise, like overtly masculine.
Yeah.
That is the appeal of the entire series. It's not me being pretentious. That is what the whole franchise is built around. Just the power that a God of War has. It's escapism.
Yeah, and I'm not against, trying to change the game, make it better, make it different, whatever like that. But the original God of War franchise obviously kind of ran out of steam. I thought God of War 3 was great, but they did a follow-up to that, which was like a prequel. And
that's Ascension, wasn't it?
Ascension, yeah. They'd obviously kind of run out of ideas at that point. And I know that the original director actually got a ton of money to work on a new franchise, but I guess it was canceled. At the cost of something like $100 million. No, maybe no.
Because David Jaffe created the original. Like, let me look this up.
Yeah, there was some guy was put on another project. Apparently, it was similar to Mass Effect, but something happened and his project got canceled. I don't know what. Maybe it was Jaffe. I know Jaffe's been doing little things here and there, but I think it was somebody else. For some reason, I think of a Swedish person. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, they kind of ran out of ideas with the original. So it makes sense that to use the brand recognition to push a new kind of game out there. And I mean, Kratos did have wife and kid, but that was really just more of a backstory than anything.
Yeah. He killed his wife and kid. I'm going to blame the gods.
Well, I mean, that's actually fairly true to... I was a huge Greek mythology buff when I was growing up. I forgot half of it, but I mean, that was the original Hercules things was that Hera straight up curses Hercules with madness, and he straight up murders his whole family. So I mean, that's pretty true to the original stuff.
Well, yeah, like it fits with the Greek mythology aesthetic, Greek tragedy.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Just something you put two and two together for.
But like after the original game, like it got kind of a little ridiculous. Like, why are you killing all the gods? Like you're killing the earth now. Stop it. I was playing God of War 3 and I'm like, no, stop it. You're killing everything.
Yeah. And now I believe, now the new God of War is in Norseland, aka, oh, look, we didn't know that Hellblade was getting made. Shit, what do we do?
Yeah.
Make it a walkie fields-a-thon with a kid. Didn't The Last of Us do that? No, just do it anyway. Don't worry. We'll it'll get good reviews anyway.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's entertaining. I like Last of Us. Last of Us had a really good balance. I think that a lot of game devs don't really realize. They didn't actually have a ton of cinematics in Last of Us. Most of it was during the gameplay.
This is why I'm gonna have to disagree with you on this, because I cannot really understand The Last of Us's appeal. Primarily because I'm a gameplay first sort of thing, and if most of the gameplay is consisting of walking, why not just do that in the cutscene?
Yeah, I mean, there's some definitely environmental, lack of a better term, circle jerkery in Last of Us, but it did have a really... Last of Us realized that the guys, I forget his name right now, but the guys at Naughty Dog realized that more isn't always better. Like, they had a really good way of making the fairly short, intense scenes, in combat and whatever, even more intense, because the build up. You know, it did a really good job of building up. Like, for example, there were many times when I was playing and I had like 3 bullets to my name. I had like 1 in my revolver. I had, you know, a couple, did they have bow and arrow in that game? I don't remember, but they had like a couple other, you know, like a shotgun shell. And like, I literally had like 1 bullet to 3 different guns I had. So the whole tagline actually was probably the best description of the gameplay, in that you actually had to conserve ammunition. Going in for melee wasn't necessarily about, you know, I'm badass or whatever. Just like, I've got to conserve my ammo for the real threats, you know? And it was it managed to, you know, it was a survival game. It wasn't really like a survival game in what we know now, but it spoke about the scarcity and the desperation through its mechanics, which I think is probably its most brilliant thing, even more brilliant than the story. I thought the story was well done, but the way it communicated the desperation through how scarce everything was really, really well done. I could give it that.
Yeah, well, in terms of presentation, they've certainly got that now. But when I'm actually playing it, 2 things kind of stood out to me. One of them was that sometimes the gameplay and the story felt a bit disconnected, like in terms of what I'm feeling, especially at the end where you have to rescue the kid.
Spoiler.
Oh, come on, the game's several years old.
All right, spoiler alert. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so, well, I've already said that you've got to rescue the kid, so, but I thought the game would have been stronger if there was an option for you to simply turn around and walk away, because at the end I kind of was leaning more to the side of the fireflies.
Yeah, you know, I agree with you. I think that, see, there's some really, really, really cool stuff that the game does, and not everybody's going to experience that. Like, one of the most hardcore things in that game was I took out a bunch of desperate, you know, scavenger, you know, thieves or whatever. And the game really kind of paints a very morally gray image of these guys, because, you know, at one point you find out that he was even one of those people. The Joel's did the same thing.
Yeah, the Nolan North character.
Yeah. So you get the idea that
not Joel.
These people
no, Joel. Sorry, Joel's Troy Baker. Nolan North was the cannibal, wasn't he? Yeah, Nolan North was the cannibal. You're talking about the cannibals, aren't you?
Right. Yeah. Troy Baker. Nolan North played he had a single name like Joseph or something like that. I forget his name, but yeah, he played that other guy. But yeah, Troy Baker was Joel. But yeah, Joel was
during that period where he was in every single game ever.
Yeah, exactly. He had his kind of burn bright there, but you get the idea that, you know, these people can be very cruel, but they're not necessarily anything that different from us. I mean, Joel was a scavenger. He set up traps. He would kill the unwary, things like that. You got that idea that over 20 years, he kind of got pretty desperate. But some of the coolest moments in the game were after I took out a group of these guys, I raised my gun at one of them and he begged for his life. Like, things like that are really, really interesting. And Last of Us gave us a peek at what you could do with that. Like, for example, how badass would that last cutscene be if you actually had to make all those decisions through down the barrel of your gun, you know?
Yeah, which leads me to my second piece of The Last of Us that I didn't like, and that was the AI. Apparently they rebuilt the AI from scratch just about 3 to 6 months before the game launched.
That's not too unusual. I think the same exact thing happened with Thief the Dark Project. That's actually what held the game up for development. AI for stealth is still obviously a challenge for even modern games. It honestly hasn't improved for about 15 years.
Yeah. But considering what the game advertised and what we got, there was a very clear disconnect. And third thing, Ellie can march in front of the enemies. Like, she can literally be seen by the eye, and they wouldn't even like acknowledge her, say, "Oh, what's going on?" Like, she was essentially a non-contributing factor to the gameplay for the most part, which made me think that it would have been a lot more effective if she could be attacked, she could be killed, like, not just in scripted sections, like towards the beginning of the game when you're first driving a car and you crash it in and she's immediately in danger. I'm talking about, during the combat sequences, she could actually be hurt, because then it would make her, more. I'm trying to find the word for it. More of a factor to gameplay, and feels like that you are actually escorting her through the dangerous wildlife that North America has become.
Yeah, the two words that I can reply to that is BioShock Infinite. The reason that they don't do that is because BioShock and Infinite, and both voiced by our good boy Troy Baker.
Hi, Troy.
No, Troy's awesome. He's like probably one of the most talented guys in the industry. Honestly, he's really cool.
And he is disgustingly handsome as well. Disgustingly
handsome. He can sing. He's just dashingly charming.
God fucking damn it! Stop being so. he's like the stereotype nice guy jock, and it turns out he's a nerd, and you're like, what? That can't be right. Ow!
It's like that one meme. It's like the Virgin Gamer on the left and the Chad Troy Baker on the right, or something like that. The very, very similar games in terms of narrative structure, and the way that 90% of them is one big escort quest, but it doesn't feel like one. The reason being is that they take the escort quest completely out of the picture. They make it just a positive, not a negative. Because nobody likes having to deal with crappy AI that constantly gets you killed or gets you into a fail state. But they do like, what's her face, throwing medikits at you if you get hurt or whatever. Like they basically, it's kind of a trick. It's a trick to make the game fun and enjoyable.
And create this sort of dynamic in terms of story.
Yeah, it's a positive feedback loop, or if that's even the correct term, to basically to feed you a positive thing and not constantly present you with a failure state because of it. Because nobody likes escort quests because they're not fun, because the AI always gets you into a failure state generally.
Resident Evil 4. Lest we forget. At least you can hide her in a bin.
And to dump her into a bin. Yeah, I remember that. Resident Evil 4 port of on Wii is actually amazing, by the way, if you ever get a chance to play it.
Yeah, my best friend, she like when she got a Wii, she got 2 games for it. She got Okami and Resident Evil 4, and she prefers playing Resident Evil 4 on the Wii.
Yeah, it just felt natural. It was really good. But yeah, that's those 2 games kind of proved that you can make an entire game out of a escort quest and still get 10 out of 10s. They just basically cheated. They made it so that, you didn't have to suffer the negatives. You just got the positives.
Yeah, but without those negatives, it cheapens the positives, personally.
Well, it's not even an escort quest. It has the appearance of one, but you're not really saving, Ellie. You're not really saving whatever, I don't remember her name in BioShock now. It's been too long, but Elizabeth, right? You're not really saving them. They're just as powerful as you, and they're just as epic as you. And in a way, the narrative disconnect almost makes them into like Mary Sue's sort of, like they just kind of make them into perfect characters. I mean, honestly, that's my biggest complaint narratively with BioShock, not to get too off tangent, but is that she's just so goddamn amazing and perfect.
Implying we're not off tangent already.
We're talking about God of War, sort of, maybe.
This is supposed to be God of War, and we're talking about The Last of Us, and
well, the problem is we're all speculating because we've not played it, so.
Well, yeah, but we're still getting that turn. I mean, I prefer BioShock mainly because I'm a fan of BioShock. I thought the combat was better, a lot more exciting, and it suited that swashbuckling tone that they were going for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that of the two, it kind of makes, it is relevant in that it's the father figure continuation thing where you've got, the older male protagonist protecting a younger, protagonist. You've got the the protection kind of thing in there. It plays into more of the story than the actual gameplay. I know that you can call in your little boy in God of War as like you can shoot arrows or whatever, but I'm
boy.
I haven't played it. I haven't played it, but I would bet money on that you don't really have the negative of him because nobody wants to deal with that. Nobody wants to deal with having a little weak thing that you have to constantly revive or watch out for it dying or whatever. I mean, maybe you have to revive it, but I doubt you can actually get a failure state from losing the boy. I highly doubt that.
I just find it really amusing that he just keeps calling him boy in that Grizzly turn. Come, boy.
That's funny.
Like it's a little puppy. Boy.
Yeah.
Come here, boy. Come here.
Yeah, I gotta get that. They have to match the Grizzly. They can't make it too wholesome, or else gamer bros won't buy it, I guess.
It's why they got to stick the big macho man on the front of the box because they won't buy it.
Yeah, I want to play it, but I'll probably play it in like a year once my entire hype has died.
Yeah.
I've played some games like that, and I'm like, oh, this is actually a pretty decent game. But if I play it now, I'm going to be disappointed. I know it.
Yeah.
Because after tweets like, the famous tweet, what if Zelda had an amazing cinematic story?
Oh,
what if Last of Us had incredible skill-based combat? What if Uncharted somehow put all the violence in context? What if Dark Souls was approachable and clear?
Sake.
The answer to all these questions and more.
For fuck's sake.
Is God of
War.
Right,
okay. I am going to load up this tweet, and I'm going to pick it apart.
No, I have it up already. It's a work of art. I think all of its 9,000 likes are ironic.
Right. Where is it? Clean Price Gaming with that goddamn video where he doesn't even
I got it.
Do much. God.
Oh, Clean Prince Gaming, he's the best video essayist on gaming, so says YouTube.
All right, here we go. Okay, it's by the guy who wrote for, and of course it would get in the way. He wrote for, he doesn't really write for anyone, Geeks and Sneak. What if Zelda had an amazing cinematic story? Majora's Mask. What if The Last of Us had incredible skill-based combat? I'm trying to think of one here. Okay, what if Uncharted somehow put all the violence in context? Spec Ops The Line. What if Dark Souls was approachable and clear? Bloodborne. Jesus Christ. This is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever read in my fucking life. Is this guy supposed to be a professional games journalist?
Just read it. Just read his description. Yeah.
I'm reading his website. Like, I'm on his website. He's supposed to specialize in geek culture. I mean, he hasn't updated his site in like at least a year.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
But it seems like considering the people that I follow also follow him. I don't know if this is because of the stupid ass tweet, but aren't you supposed to know these things? How can you forget Majora's Mask of all things? Because Majora's Mask is one of the most acclaimed video game stories ever. Like, it's not the typical Zelda story. It is darker, and it's very, very compelling. It's got a very, very unique hook in terms of story and gameplay. How can you forget that?
He probably didn't play it. I mean, the guy is like a. It reeks of advertiser safe guy who can sort of write, but isn't really into the things he does. Like, just look at his father, husband, actor, show host, gamer, VR enthusiast, runner. I love loving things. Hashtag geeks and sneaks or whatever. So it's like it's the safe bet. Like, there was a lot of different guys that got somewhat notable because they have that kind of surface level understanding of the industry, and they look good in their stills or whatever. But I mean, God. This guy, yeah, he's something.
Okay, I am reading the Twitter replies to this, and I am screaming internally on how he is trying to justify that tweet. This is. I've seen stupid tweets before, And I've got some...
Every few years we get the game circle jerk. It's like it comes around, you know, and this is our current one, which is God of War. I mean, it's just like Last of Us. It's probably going to be a very interesting narrative. It probably has very good voice acting, very good mocap, highly, you know, AAA production value, good overall, you know, probably decent combat, good gameplay, decent, whatever. Probably very linear, but it's not the second coming. It's not the second coming of Gaben, like a lot of people, you know, whatever you insert whatever you want to say here. But it's the thing, like the overhype is just insane.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why I really liked Nier Automata, just because like the hype levels they weren't insane, like they were excited, but not because of what the story's going to be, but because of the fact that a Nier sequel exists.
Yeah, the fact that they even touched that thing again. I remember that the original got bashed, and it was such a weird, like the second half of the game was basically a rehash of the first half of the game, and they just did a bunch of obviously budget cuts and things like that. You know, it was very, very odd. But I find myself, you two probably, strangely compelled to the secret masterpiece rather than the, oh my God, this is the greatest game ever, so say we all, you know?
Well, yeah, I played Dynasty Warriors. Which is the greatest, hey, Dynasty Warriors is the greatest masterpiece of all time.
It's the greatest 50 masterpieces of all time.
And one stinker. But that's a story for another day.
What if Last of Us had good voice acting? All these questions and more.
The answer is Dynasty Warriors.
Did you see my parody tweet of that quote the other day? It was I'll link it to you, but
not Indigo Child.
No, not Indigo Child. It was
you are far beyond that. There we go.
What if Super Mario 64 had machine guns? What if God of War had machine guns? What if The Legend of Zelda had machine guns? What if Sonic the Hedgehog had machine guns? The answer to these questions and more is Shadow the Hedgehog.
Of course, the best of the Sonic games.
I remember hearing about that game, and it's like,
what, Shadow the Hedgehog or God of War?
I thought it was yeah, Shadow the Hedgehog, the better of the two, Shadow the Hedgehog. And I thought it was a joke, and I remember first watching the trailer of that game and being like I literally, you know, people say it's like I my mouth was agape, and I'm like, no, I actually had my mouth open. I just couldn't believe that somebody at Sega actually greenlit a game where you play a hedgehog with Uzis. Like, that was just so amazingly baffling that I could not even realize that I was watching on screen.
Yeah, you would have been in your late teens, early 20s at the time, wouldn't you?
I didn't. That was for like what, 07 or something?
No, it was 2004. Because it was a Sonic game before 06.
Right.
And we all know what year that one came out.
Yeah, Sonic 06 has become a meme. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't. The last I'd played was like Sonic Adventure, which was like, okay, it was a little bit wonky, but it's all right. But no, I had a job that basically took up literally all my time from about 04 to like 07. So I was kind of out of gaming. I've caught up on some of the stuff, but yeah, I wasn't around during the peak of that time in the gaming sphere. But yeah, that was a masterpiece.
And he got like all the edgy swears as well. He said damn a lot.
Damn.
Damn. Where's that damn Chaos Emerald?
So speaking of off the rails, what's our next topic?
Oh, man. Okay. Off the rails, Campo Santa has been acquired by Valve.
Right. They're the Firewatch. Aren't they Firewatch?
Yeah. They're the Firewatch lot. Previously, they did the Walking Dead Season 1.
Oh, they did Walking Dead. They didn't... Telltale didn't do that?
No. It was the two writers. They did the Walking Dead Season 1, the two lead writers.
Oh, I see.
They left to do Firewatch. They said in a statement saying... in Valve, we found a group of folks who, to their core, feel the same way about the work that they do. This, you'd be surprised to learn, doesn't happen every day. In us, they found a group with unique experience they found a group with unique experience and valuable diverse perspectives. It quickly became an obvious match. Second, while visiting IGN's headquarters in early 2015 to talk about Firewatch, we came across an undelivered 2011 Game of the Year award for Portal 2. It happened to be engraved on an unopened bottle of champagne. Never once to pass up free alcohol, we stole it and drank it to celebrate the launch of Firewatch a year later. So in some sense, this was a return home for us.
What?
So IGN, in 2011, gave a Game of Year award to Portal 2, and they engraved it on a bottle of champagne to give to Valve. Valve never picked it up, so the Firewatch...
So they grabbed the bottle.
So the Firewatch guys just grabbed the champagne.
That's interesting. What a weird story to put in an article like that, but...
No, this was an official release on their website. They've got a picture of the bottle as well.
Yeah, that makes so much more context. Yeah, I saw the picture. I didn't know what it meant, but yeah, so now that Valve owns them, they don't have to release another game. That's great.
Yeah, sweet. Just spend the rest of their lives making Team Fortress hats.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Dota hats.
Yeah, Valve has that's a whole other topic, but Valve has a big problem with, I don't think they need to make another game. They clearly don't. Which is a problem, I think.
They've got two huge sources of income. They've got the cut from Steam, and they've also got all of Dota 2, not just the microtransactions in Dota 2, which I believe there are, in like voice packs.
Yeah.
Especially voice packs. But also with their esports division, which they host the largest of the tournament. Sorry, the largest of the annual season calendar, the international.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
Yeah, that alone, alongside the merchandising that they do for that game at the event, gives them a crap ton of money.
Yeah,
and not just in TI, but in all the majors that they do.
Yeah,
like I don't watch a lot of esports, but just watching the international, just the production value of TI itself from the presentation of it, like they treat this as an actual kind of like an actual sport event. Like they have a panel, they've got an analyst that takes a look at their gameplay, they've got a commentator, a color commentator, not just native but also a beginners friendly one. They've got it in different languages. Their stage is insane. Like you know how a lot of esports teams in terms of competitive games, like they put them in two separate sides or two separate booths depending on how much money is at stake.
Yeah.
They do that in the middle of a Seattle sports arena. I don't know what it's called. The Key Arena. And at the center of it, they build like a stage. And essentially what happens in the game, like if someone triggers their ultimate, the stage lights up in response, in reaction to it.
That's pretty cool.
It is a spectacle to behold.
That is pretty cool. It obviously put a lot of money and development into it, and they managed just to strong arm out all the other LoL competitors and actually make it to a strong number 2, rank number 2 in that whole field, which is a very competitive field. I mean, there was guys before and after LoL, but they all kind of failed except for League, really.
I think in terms of player count, League of Legends is a bit higher up, but in terms of esports, I personally think Dota is number 1, mainly because just the way they present it and the fact that it's a lot more accessible. Like it was specifically set up to be accessible. It's the biggest event of the Dota calendar. It's going to attract more casuals. It's how I originally watched Dota. I watched the 2 documentaries about it and was like, you know, I'm going to watch the international. And it was, even though I don't support any of the teams, it's a real treat to watch. And the whole thing's like a week long, and it can get quite tiring, especially for me. But if you can, go for it. Like, give it a watch. It's a lot of fun to watch.
It's cool. Yeah, I mean, they've definitely done a good job with it. It only takes only a couple companies could probably have done it to that, production value. Valve, Blizzard, whatever. But apparently Blizzard even failed on that with their whatever it is, League of Legends clone. But it was Heroes of the Storm.
Blizzard Dota All-Stars, was it? No, Hero of the Storm it ended up being, didn't it?
Yeah, they were going to... It was originally going to be a joke. It was a joke add-on for StarCraft 2 that ended up becoming a real game. But the problem is people didn't really take it seriously. I wonder why at the end. But they're still supporting it. But yeah, obviously if it is the third, it's a far third. Smite's still doing okay from what I heard, but it's not
Smite,
great. But
Paladins?
Paladins is there. No. Paladins is by the same dev. That's more of an Overwatch type game.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I'm thinking Overwatch. I mean, speaking of Blizzard, really.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the weird thing about Paladins is that was kind of a train wreck that actually was playable before Overwatch was even released. But they ended up just going back on the original design and cloning Overwatch. Kind of a sad state, but
could be worse. You could be handling Battleborn's marketing and launch.
Oh, yeah, there were some other Dotas too that were completely killed. There was one year where literally like 4 or 5 big games were announced that all had the word battle in there.
Oh,
there was Battlefield, Battlefront, Battleborn, Battlecry, Battlezone, and possibly something else. Battlecry, I think, got killed before it was released. That was another Dota-ish, Battleborn-ish, whatever, Dota / third-person action shooter, whatever it was. That was actually under Bethesda's. That was Bethesda's take into the foray. But yeah, is that our next topic? The Battle Royale thing, which would be kind of tie nicely with the MOBA topic, actually.
We'll get to that in a moment. I do have it lined up because it's time to take a quick trip back to 2 years ago where everybody hated Konami.
People like Konami now?
No, I doubt it. So UEFA have released a statement saying that the Champions League final, this is football or soccer, the UEFA Champions League final will mark the end of a 10-year partnership between Konami and the sporting body. UEFA Champions League games are no longer going to be produced by Konami. Personally, I don't know if it's going to end the Winning 11 Soccer series or Pro Evolution Soccer, as we call it here. But considering that Konami are very clearly distancing themselves from gaming and cutting down on expensives, this doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, now I know of Pro Evolution Soccer, even though I haven't, touched a soccer ball in like 10 years. But to scale, I don't know if you're more familiar or not, but it's not nearly as popular as FIFA. Am I right in that judgment?
No. But funnily enough, the UEFA license was under Electronic Arts before it came to Konami.
Okay, so and then EA now has FIFA, right? That's the current...
Yeah. EA have had FIFA for the good part of at least 20 years.
Yeah, I remember there was really confusing because there were a couple different big, American football franchises, a couple big basketball franchises, and a couple big soccer franchises, or football as the Brits call it. The interesting thing is that like sometimes I would hear about one of those being really bad and the other one being really good. And I'd be like, how do you get it wrong? It's basketball. But apparently sometimes that would happen. But the interesting thing is I don't know if the general public would ever could really know that did have a strong enough brand separation from the two, or if they just kind of bought each new year as they went. I mean, I'm sure there's probably some people who are FIFA, fans of other people who are UEFA. Is that the correct?
UEFA, yeah. UEFA. As us people kind of just like put it as one word.
UEFA. Okay.
So UEFA. Yeah. Well, the big difference between UEFA and FIFA is that UEFA is a territory.
Okay.
It's a territory body.
And FIFA runs the World Cup, right?
FIFA runs pretty much the entire sport, and the way that FIFA administrate it is that they actually have different territories that are administered by different bodies, and for Europe, it's UEFA. You got one for Asia that's weirdly enough includes Australia. You've got North America, South America, Oceania. It's separated into 5 territories, I believe. I'll have to look this up. Let me check this. But Konami held the rights to UEFA in terms of making football games, which were previously owned by Electronic Arts, and now that license has come to an end. So one wonders if it's going to go back to Electronic Arts.
Why would they need that, though? They already have brand recognition in FIFA. I mean, unless there were certain teams or likenesses that they would gain from owning both.
They wouldn't gain any likeness because UEFA was essentially a child association from FIFA.
Okay.
Like they were just keeping an eye on the territory, making sure everything was fine.
I see. Okay.
The reason why I'd say Electronic Arts might snatch it up is because they actually did something quite interesting with the UEFA games alongside the FIFA games. Like UEFA didn't sell as much as FIFA. It never has, because FIFA encompasses the entire sport, essentially.
Right.
But what they did is that they used the UEFA games to trial different game modes, and if something was good or successful or responded well to players, they'd actually put it in FIFA.
Interesting.
And
so they were kind of the underdog. They had to kind of pull their weight to beat the big guy, and then if they did something well, then basically, so you're basically saying that UEFA was every other shooter and FIFA is COD. Call of Duty.
I'm not sure if I'd use that analogy, because UEFA had a little something that would define Electronic Arts' revenue for a good part of 5 to 10 years.
But
UEFA was where Ultimate Team was born.
But I'm saying in terms of innovating, they'd innovate something and then COD
Get snatched up by FIFA.
yeah, that's exactly how COD's been working on the last like 10 years. Is like every, Titanfall is like, hey, let's make big robots. Call of Duty is like, I like robots. And then so similar in for the layman like me, which yeah,
except it's by the same company.
Is it developed by the same company?
I don't know if it's developed by the same company, but they were both published by EA before Konami snatched it up. UEFA Champions League game. Let me check. No, I don't want the actual pissing. I don't want the pissing sport. Video.
Yeah, Konami's had a slow, long death, and I think had they not been successful in the 90s, they probably would have just curled up and died by now. And obviously we see a very small portion of the company. For example, one example I use is, for example, you think of Volvo and you think of a couple cars or whatever. Cars is actually a small division of Volvo. They have like airplanes and also their stuff. You sometimes only see like a certain portion of a company, and I understand that Konami has a lot of other investments. They've got, I heard that they have exercise and all those other stuff. They obviously have gambling machines and things like that. But
yeah, they've got their fingers in a lot of things.
Yeah, but without a doubt, the Western view of Konami was video games, and they seem to be pretty much washing their hands of that. Outside of a couple things, like I guess they just announced that they're making or just released a new mobile Castlevania game that they're doing. Pretty sure about that, which I know.
What is a game? A nothing but a miserable little pile of
Secrets, I guess.
Well, it's definitely not secret if they're doing a press release, but at least it isn't a fucking pachinko machine.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's a game.
Although considering microtransaction related thing and Metal Gear Survive, ironically, I don't think Castlevania will survive.
Yeah, it's a little. They're obviously trying to chase trends, trying to chase things that will return. It's designed by board of investors. That's been Konami.
Okay, interestingly, yeah, it was developed by the same company, the UEFA and FIFA games.
So they just make two different brands or two different variants basically, and they were a bit riskier or a bit more innovative with the Konami one, and then sometimes it'd be picked up by FIFA if it did well.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, like I said, Ultimate Team was Ultimate Team was part of that little experiment that turned into this big mammoth gambly mess that we got a full explosion of last year. Wasn't that a fun time?
It reminds me of the Telltale games where they just do a billion different franchises for different people, and sometimes it turn out okay, sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes they borrow other ideas from the other games, or
well, yeah, but at least it's not encouraging your kids to gamble.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, moving on from that, Halo Online launched.
Now, is that the Windows 10 exclusive bare bones multiplayer component of Halo 5, or is this something different?
No. This is something different. I don't know the story behind it, but in brief, it's essentially an update to Halo Online, which has been around for a while, but this update has been quite substantial. You can essentially play Halo multiplayer, as is on PC, like Halo 3 maps with Halo 3 graphics, Halo 3 collision detection, all that stuff, featuring the elephants from Sandtrap. It's a nostalgic product that isn't endorsed by Microsoft or 343, which makes me believe that it won't last, especially considering the amount of attention that it's got.
Yeah, it's been hearing about it a lot recently.
But needless to say, it's a welcome surprise. It's a nice, lovely glimmer of light in an otherwise quite dreadful time.
Honestly, it totally fooled me. I'm looking at it now. It looks like an official Halo product. I mean, maybe not quite as shiny as 5, but I mean, I could see the appeal. It's got a big fat, cease and desist order headed its way, I'm sure, but I think it's developed by Russians, so better keep an eye on those datas, America. Yeah, this is the Russian free-to-play online game. Yeah, I heard about this. Some big YouTuber covered this, I think, at one point, but that's interesting, but yeah, why do people do this? Why do people do these games when they're just going to get sued or something like that? I don't know. I don't see Microsoft or 343 risking, potential loss of rights and all that kind of stuff over an online game, especially like you said, there's a
loss of revenue as well.
Yeah, it's getting a lot of attention, and it also makes them look like chumps if some, hack Russians can do a better job than they can, It's got to kind of hurt a little bit, and also it's going to, threaten their trademark.
Especially after Halo 5's launch was a massive, well, I won't say a flop because it sold well, but in terms of how Halo games are normally remembered, I've played Halo games for a long time. I've been playing it for the good part of 12 years.
Yeah.
I first got it when a family friend got an Xbox 360, and he gave me the original Xbox, and it came with Halo 1 and Halo 2. And interestingly enough, it came with Half-Life 2, but that's a different story altogether.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with you. It definitely wasn't a flop, but the brand damage was visible. They definitely damaged the value of their brand with Halo 5 just due to the short, disappointing campaign, the much more imitative multiplayer rather than innovative. Like Halo was the online multiplayer shooter back in the day. You know, it was the standard. Now it's kind of just following trends of other games. So that kind of definitely hurt Halo as a brand, I believe.
Yeah, not only that, but what do you actually remember from Halo 5? Like in terms of plot, like in Halo 1, you can remember a lot. You've got the introduction of the Flood. You've got the initial reveal of the Halo ring after your escape pod crashes, the Pillar of Autumn, the Truth and Reconciliation, Echo 419. You remember a lot of stuff. It's a finely crafted video game, and the same with Halo 2. I mean, Halo 2's got a lot of problems, don't get me wrong, but you can still remember it quite vividly. The Prophet of Truth, the Prophet of Regret, that opening sequence, which won't make much sense on a consumer level, but when you take a look at the presentation, it is immaculate.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of really memorable, like the whole tank sequence of the bridge and stuff like that. There's a lot of really memorable moments just one indication of how forgettable the Halo 5 story was is that there's a controversy over them actually promoting with promotional material, promoting scenes and scenarios that didn't happen in the game. Like they had to make up exciting stuff for the trailers. Yeah. Like the whole conflict between I don't even remember his name, and Master Chief didn't really happen the way they promoted it. They made up stuff.
Spartan Locke.
Yeah, Spartan Locke.
Yeah, it happened in a cutscene and they kind of got over it.
Basically, it's Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yeah, but but the difference between that and Halo 5 is that Metal Gear Solid 2 was actually good.
No, I love Metal Gear Solid 2, but I know a lot of people were bummed about it.
Like, and it had a purpose. It had an artistic purpose. While in Halo 5, just felt a bit cynical. Like, I don't remember. Like, I mean, I didn't play Halo 5, but I watched a playthrough of it, and I don't remember anything of. I don't remember anything about it. I remember you fight the Warden Eternal like 5 times.
Yeah.
And Chief goes AWOL. Like people give Halo 4 a lot of shit, but I can actually remember a good chunk of Halo 4. Like
yeah, I remember there was the weird pokey, the pokey bristle-headed dude. There was the crazy digital weapons, the whole thing with turning the world digital or whatever, and then there was the David Cage ending.
But the thing about Halo 4 is that the main villain is everything wrong with it, and it's actually kind of sad because he's voiced by Keith Zarabajka.
I'm not familiar with him, but
he did. Oh God, I can't remember which one it was. He played Terrence Kyne in Dead Space.
Was that the cult leader or something?
It wasn't the cult leader. That was someone else. No, he was the concerned doctor who was hallucinating.
I vaguely remember that. It's been a while. I played those on the 360, but
it was. But he was also he's been in a lot of video games.
No, I remember the Didact being interesting to a point, but they didn't do anything with them, and the ending really kind of fell flat. But I did enjoy it. I was just very shocked that literally I played. I think the step up from normal. I think it was it hardcore or something like that. Difficulty with a friend co-op, and we weren't speed running, rushing or anything, but we went at the end of the game. We looked at our game played, and it was six hours on the dot. And I was like, "Whoa, that seems a bit short." Because I remember putting a bit, like 8 to 12 hours into like 3 and Reach and stuff like that. So it was very short. It was flashy. It was short. There were some interesting plots, but yeah, they really to quote the Halo announcer, betrayed, on the storyline, because they really undermined a lot of plots. Not getting too many spoilers, but with the rampancy subplot and stuff like that, it follows through, but they really kind of ruined a lot of characters and betrayed a lot of fans plot wise with Halo 5. So
Okay, I found him. You've played LA Noire, right?
Yeah. I never played all the way through, but I did play a good half of it or something.
I was going to say, do you remember Herschel Biggs? He was one of the partners, kind of a grisly partner, a fat one.
Was it the guy who like just assumed that all murders were the husband? Is that the guy, possibly?
I don't believe so. But
good voice actor though.
He was an old guy, but okay. Harbinger, that's the one. He did Harbinger in Mass Effect.
Oh yeah, that's good.
He's got a really incredible vocal range, and the didact in terms of voice acting is great. But the more you kind of look into the didact, it becomes kind of clear that he's everything wrong with the game. Not only that, but in Halo 5 Guardians, the didact is dead.
Well, he died in 4.
No, he didn't.
Spoiler alert.
No, he didn't. No. He dies in a comic book.
What?
Yes.
See, that's the problem. Halo 4 was supposed to be the start of a new trilogy, but they just ditched that. They ditched that with 5.
They've made it essential for you to look into the extra media for you to get a basic understanding of Halo 5.
That's really stupid.
Because when I was watching it, I was like, hang on, where's the didact? Who are these chums? I mean, I know that chum. He was in Halo 3 ODST, and I know that because Halo 3 ODST is my favorite of the bunch. But
yeah, that's been a problem with Halo for a while, ever since the original game. Actually, the games are not nearly as deep. The narrative is not nearly as deep as people remember it to be because of all the ancillary data. Like most of the stuff you know about Halo isn't actually in the game. Like it's the Star Wars effect where people think of all this other stuff, and like Greedo doesn't even have a name in Star Wars 1. Like that's a perfect sign of the ancillary lore kind of repairing problems with the original media. Like Halo had those really, really well-received books by, I think, Greg Bear, if I remember right. The novels and like the Halo Reach book and stuff like that. Yeah. They were all really, really well received. They're basically like full-on sci-fi novels because Greg Bear is like a full-on sci-fi author. And they kind of repair the interesting but fairly shallow stories that are told in the Halo games. I mean, they're good, but they're very much like a sci-fi movie that's based on a much deeper book. That's kind of my take on them. They weren't bad. They're just kind of like popcorn sci-fi movies, you know. But that's one problem I had, and it seems like they've almost kind of become self-aware that they're just going to read the extended universe stuff in Halo. So they just decided to kill a character off screen, which seems kind of silly because, yeah, he definitely seemed like he was going to be the start of a new trilogy story, just like the guys like the Covenant were in the original Halo trilogy. It seems like there is the guys that split, like there were some guys who left Bungie to form 343 and some people stayed. It's a really interesting story. I wouldn't mind digging into it sometime myself, but the creatives that split and some of them left during the whole split from Halo and Destiny and everything like that is very interesting.
Yeah, the Bungie separation.
Yeah, and interesting enough, the guy that did all the cinematics and a lot of the writing and stuff like that, who was the main project leader for the writing for Destiny, who quit a year before Destiny was released.
What's his name? I think his name's Frank. Let me check that.
But yeah,
it's not Frank O'Connor, isn't it? Destiny 2. God damn.
Well, there was a guy who was involved in Destiny for years before, and he was involved in Halo. Joseph
Staten.
Yeah,
Joseph
Staten. I think he was the heart of Halo.
Yeah.
I think he was the heart of Halo. I think he was the heart of Destiny, and they killed it because they basically in a board meeting they decided to that like he presented the original like final draft scenario draft for the whole campaign for Destiny, and they're like, nope, it needs to be open. We need to change everything. And he quit like shortly after that, like a couple months after that. And they made it into like a very replayable, very not particularly exceptionally crafted, but not particularly memorable, story environments and stuff like that, but like a really humdrum storyline that could have been much better.
I'll tell you what he's working on right now.
Oh.
Crackdown 3.
Oh my God. The poor guy. Can he ever get a break?
He's...
no.
You can do quite a bit with Crackdown. The first Crackdown, it's actually kind of suitable he's doing Crackdown, because Crackdown 1 had the Halo 3 beta. So...
Yeah, Crackdown 3. I did actually hear some news just now, today, actually, that Crackdown 3 was rated in some country, I think in South America. So maybe it is actually happening soon.
Rated?
Rated, like...
age-rated?
Yes, age-rated, I believe.
I was going to say rated. What?
No. Crackdown 3 rated, I think it was like Brazil. Yeah, Brazil. Yeah. Suggested the release is near because Crackdown 3 has been rated in Brazil. So that's usually when they have a final content, because you can't rate something before you have the final content. So
yeah, it's gonna be kind of weird doing it in Brazil though, considering like video game consoles and video games themselves, unless it's pirated, are like $5 million over there. Yeah,
well, they might be doing a PC version. I honestly, and this could kind of segue into Xbox. Like, I'm the first person to tell you that Microsoft sucks, but honestly, they're doing great with their cross-console stuff.
Cross-console and backwards compatibility as well.
Yeah, I love their cross-console stuff. I played with some friends Gears of War 4 seamlessly on the PC with Xbox players. They did the same thing with Sea of Thieves. They're doing, I think, with a couple other games too. And yeah, recently I installed an old game I used to play back on like the PS2. It was Hunter the Reckoning, which is, if you're a fan of World of Darkness, the pen and paper series, is basically a everything evil and supernatural hunter game where you just like kill vampires, you kill zombies, you kill ghosts, you kill like monsters, you kill demons. Really, really old game for the original Xbox, probably like 2002. I think the game came out.
I'm not thinking of the same game as you. I'm actually going to look this up because there's a game that's kind of similar, but the difference is that it's ultimate dog shit.
Oh, really?
I learned about it from a guy called Tennings, and he did a series called The Worst Games You've Never Played.
Oh.
So
yeah, I mean, they're not the greatest games ever, but they didn't get bad ratings. I think I got like 7s and some like 8s and stuff like that back in the day. But
it's called it's getting picked up by my OBS. But
you're not thinking of Vampire Rain, are you?
No, I'm thinking of Demon Summoner.
Ooh, I don't think I've even heard of that.
Well, you haven't, because it's a fucking budget game. Like I said, the worst games you've never played.
That's crazy.
And Jesus Christ, it was on the PS2. It looks awful.
There's some really bad games on the PS2 that got so popular that they made anything on the PS2.
Oh God, Little Britain for the PS2. Beverly Hills Cop, that doesn't even...
What?
Yeah, they made a Beverly Hills Cop game for the PS2, and it was rubbish.
15 years after its relevancy. That's funny. Yeah, but I was very impressed with Hunter the Reckoning, though, because it was the original Xbox game, so I think like that capped out at like 480p or something. This game, I swear to God, ran at 1080p and 60 frames per second on the Xbox One, that's like straight up emulation. That's like, you run an old PlayStation game and up the res, up the frame rate, stuff like that. That's actually very impressive that they're nobody asked them to do that, but they did it anyway. Like, that's pretty cool for the lack of actual games being released on the Xbox, exclusives. They're making up for actually having really good cross-console compatibility and backwards compatibility.
Yeah, I said while the Xbox One and the PS4 was released, is if you can get backwards compatibility just right, you can dominate the market. Now, do I think that the backwards compatibility that we're getting is the most desirable? Personally, I don't think so.
Way too late. Yeah, it's way too late.
It's not because it's way too late, but it's because you're essentially rebuying a game. Like, Jesus Christ. Okay, for some reason something's popped up in my computer.
I heard you could use the disc. I'm not sure if that's correct, but I heard you can use the disc, and that would count as owning the game. I bought it digitally because I didn't even have the Hunt of the Reckoning on Xbox. If I remember right, I might have had one of the sequels, but yeah, I mean they're fairly reasonably priced. But I mean at the same time, there's not too many people that are going to buy an Xbox original game for $15 in 2018. That seems a bit high for that. But there are some other good games. Like they just released. It's all over the news now with Morrowind. Like apparently they upscaled Morrowind like a lot. I was looking at a comparison video. I believe the original Morrowind ran on the Xbox at like 480p 30, something like that. The new one is like I think it's either 1080 or 4K at 60, which for an Xbox original port is pretty damn good. You can't really complain about that. That's a pretty good considering nobody's asking for that, like very few people are asking for that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm seeing these videos from Digital Foundry. 4K Morrowind runs a 4K 60 on the Xbox One X, which is for considering the consoles, you barely even get backwards compatibility is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I have low standards when it comes to backwards compatibility or straight up emulation or porting, and that is it better than the Silent Hill HD collection? That is the only thing that I say is my passing grade. Is it better than that? And the reason why is because it's getting the easiest job in the world right, and that is to get it working correctly, almost untouched. Whereas the Silent Hill HD collection somehow fucks that up.
Didn't they revoice everybody?
It's not just that. It wasn't just the voices. It was the fact that it was a broken pile of ass. Like it was broken, like really broken.
Yeah, I don't remember having that much trouble. I bought it because I'd been kicking myself. This is years ago. I was kicking myself because I never played Silent Hill 2.
Do yourself a favor after the podcast is finished. Go to YouTube and type in the real Silent Hill experience, Silent Hill HD collection. There's these two guys that spent over 2 hours analyzing what is wrong with the HD collection and also talk about some of the business dealings behind the recasting of the voices.
Yeah, I should look into that. I know that was very contentious because the original voices, I mean, the game was so creepy. So if you just replace voices with other actors, possibly of lesser caliber, that's going to piss a lot of people off, especially if they don't have the option to turn it off. I mean, that's
they replaced it with quite high caliber voice actors.
Huh,
like they brought in Troy Baker.
Oh, yeah, I mean, he's really good.
Yeah, but
he's handsome, that bastard.
Yeah, but the thing is, in this game, he's not very good. He's pretty bad.
This is the problem with remakes and remasters is that everything that makes something great isn't always immediately apparent. Like some of those old games, especially Japanese old games, part of what made them great was how off kilter and it's not the way you would do it now. So when you go back and just change the way it's done, you can accidentally break what made it so great in the first place. I don't remember. I didn't play Silent Hill back in the day, just unfortunately, but from the videos and stuff I've watched of it, it has a very kind of almost poorly delivered way that people spoke, but it's so weird and eerie and it's a Silent Hill that it kind of makes it better in a way.
Yeah. It does. The key thing that Team Silent were trying to do is to make sure it didn't sound like acting.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of what we got out of it was perfect. It just added to the atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean they'll never be able to top the original Resident Evil 1's stellar voice acting. No, Jill, go near that door.
Here's a lockpick. I'm pretty sure you, the master of unlocking. God damn it.
I almost became a Jill sandwich, or was it?
I didn't want to bring up the obvious, but there you go. Oh, Jill, this house is dangerous. Ouch.
There's so many great lines out of that.
Oh, I need to replay that again just with the voice acting.
Oh, that would be a game I should live stream. Get the original ROM for the not the remastered or any of that other crap. You know, you can take your HD graphics and stuff them. I'm gonna do the original with the original voice acting with the cringy FMV intro and everything. That was great times. Well, in the
it's been quite windy. This has and still is. We were supposed to be talking about Halo Online, and we talk about voice acting.
Resident Evil 1 voice acting is perfectly relevant to Halo Online.
All right, so earlier we talked about Battle Royale. Very briefly, if you're somehow still listening to this disjointed podcast.
This is the Dark Souls of podcasts, because nobody will make it through the end.
I don't know. Darkside Phil actually completed Dark Souls.
With the help of his, his commenters, but yeah.
Yeah. Because heaven forbid he actually puts effort into his stuff.
Yeah, and he also got carried. Like I used to play Dark Souls like solo. I'd make it a goal of mine to do every single boss solo.
Yeah,
but I helped some guys take out a boss one time, and it was just like 3 people. And I was like, this is so much easier. This is so much better.
Yeah. Until recently, I've played the game about 7 times all the way through because, hey, It's Dark Souls. It's great. Until recently, I was never able to defeat Ornstein and Smo solo.
Some of them are really damn hard. Yeah.
Yeah. God, I think that was the only boss fight that I was unable to do solo until recently.
Got just a little plug. The coolest time to play those games was Demon's Souls. Everyone was still learning the game. It was super, super new and interesting. Nobody it was before trolling and stuff like that. It was super cool.
Yeah, and they shut down the servers.
Yeah, they recently did. I really want to play that again. Hopefully the PC emulator is able to be run on something less than the Pixar Studios mainframe. At some point, and we can play it again, because I guess I still have my PS3, so I guess I could still play it. The frame rate and stuff is a little bit low, a little bit below my standards and stuff like that, but it would be fun to play that again. That was probably my favorite of the series, just the atmosphere and the sort of newness of it all. I guess it was very different from anything I'd played before.
Ubisoft. Nothing bad about Ubisoft itself, because they've been doing pretty decent. We're talking about a comment that an ex-Ubisoft creative director said. And this is going to lead directly into the final subject.
Now, just before you get into that, I don't think we even talked about Battle Royale.
I think we've alluded to it, and we've certainly gone into depth about Ubisoft. We talked about a lot of trends, and the Battle Royale was within it. And we was going to get into it, but I said hold it off until this moment. So, okay. Alex Hutchinson, who worked with Ubisoft, he's no longer with the company. He tweeted, "Battle Royales is not a game type, it's a game mode like Deathmatch. It's easy to build on top of virtually any shooter you already have. It'll be shipping by default COD and it'll be shipping by default COD and Battlefield and every other online shooter within a year." Now, essentially what he's saying is that Battle Royale is going to be everywhere. And in some degrees it already is. You've got PUBG. That has now been overshadowed by Fortnite, which to be honest, I wasn't expecting, but I'm not complaining. I don't play those types of games. Do you, Indigo?
I've tried. I've not played a ton. I played a little bit of PUBG. I played an early build of Fortnite before it even thought of being Battle Royale. I did enjoy an early access game called The Culling, which is actually basically Hunger Games the game, which was actually quite fun. But they basically didn't know how to update it. But I played a couple here and there, but I honestly, outside of a little bit of The Culling and the Division's survival mode, which is similar in concept, I haven't played much, no.
Essentially, those modes are going to be default by next year, he's saying. And we're sort of getting rumors about that. I was going to say there's rumors going around saying Battlefield 5 is going to have a Battle Royale mode. Like, this is what I'm hearing on the grapevine. And it could work, but by the time that comes out, what sort of impact would it be? It'd be quite weird.
I mean, at this point, it seems like one of the best ways to invest development time into, like we've seen with Boss Key Productions, which is Cliffy B's company. They did Lawbreakers over years and stuff like that, like 3 or so years. And then right when they announced the timeline seems to line up that shortly after the game actually released, they immediately basically started development on a Battle Royale game. They saw the trend happening then. And so now we just got Radical Heights, a game that was made in 5 months. It's still in early access, but I mean, make a playable online game in 5 months is kind of insane. Like a game you actually pay money for. So
yeah, but then you need to remember that Cliffy B is an insane genius. Like he's not the most approachable people in the world, but he knows. He knows how to get the most amount of productivity in the least amount of time, because he was in the same spot where, well, I can't say underlings. That's a bit too demeaning, but you kind of get what I mean. He was a programmer. He started from the ground up. Yeah, he was a level designer, and he did a Jazz Jackrabbit from scratch. A game before that, even he started out as a kid. Like he did it since like literally underage. Like he was making full games in his early teens. He's despite his relatively young age in the industry, he's actually fairly old school. I mean, he did Unreal Tournament. He did, I think UT 2004. He did, Gears of War, things like that. So his mindset is kind of the old school, get a game out, make it fun, make it whatever. So I can't really imagine a worse, not worse. There's not many better people to really take on the genre than him. It seems like Nexon does not have much faith in these products, though. Like they just completely dropped Lawbreakers. They didn't try to re-release it. They weren't even willing to put in money to redesign the game into a free-to-play format, which I mean would take a couple months of development probably, but they just dropped it cold turkey and decided to go full force with a Battle Royale game, which has got to hurt. But I mean, he's a professional. I'm sure he can live with it. But yeah, my reference to that was that it's becoming kind of insane. And the fact that you can make a playable game pretty much from scratch, new franchise, new assets, new everything is kind of... It'll be quite tiring, but it's not impossible. I mean, Treyarch did Call of Duty 3 in 9 months.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, it's not...
Of all the publishers in the world, the one I dislike the most, I'd say, is Nexon. Like, with all the EAs, with all the Ubisofts, although Ubisoft has been improving, as I've alluded before, of all the Konamis, Nexon. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's right now, it just looks like a genre that'll print money. It's easy to make, though. So I can see the appeal. Right now, I think PUBG was like the most played game.
Yeah, you start with a blank map. You make sure you get your movement and survival mechanics sorted, and it's just a matter of decorating the landscape.
Yeah, I mean, it's a only shooter's dream come true. You make one map, you just keep on balancing that one map, and you make sure the game runs. You make sure you can do some RNG stuff. Add some little randomity here and there. People love playing it again and again, and it's really streamable. Yeah, it's streamable, and it's probably, I don't know if it really has esports potential just due to the nature of it, but maybe it does. But It's an incredibly...
I don't think it'll have esports potential outside of specific gaming conventions. Like, I remember H1Z1 having their own tournaments that went quite well, but I don't see anything like that happening on a major stage like ESL, CEO sort of stage, where you bring it to quite a broad convention.
I think there's too many unfairnesses that are kind of baked into the gameplay. You'd have to make probably a different mode, where everything is extremely static, not predictable. I mean, some games have esports potential, like I think some card games have gotten some esports attention, but
that's because they've already got a template. They've got poker as a template in terms of spectator sports.
Sure, yeah, But the point I was making earlier was that it seems to be a relatively easy type of game to make, but it's printing money right now. Like PUBG was the top of the charts. Fortnite was going to be basically Minecraft with zombies only months before they completely switched gears and made it into a battle royale game. Like, I played the early build of that game. It was basically Minecraft with zombies. You know, very well crafted, beautiful. You know, in that art style, at least, a pretty looking game. Well, you know, high production value, but it had no intention of going anywhere near any of that, you know, a fast PvP, you know, battle royale style game. And they switched gears and ended up making tons and tons of money. So successful that they dropped their other game, which was a MOBA clone.
I was quite sad because, like, when I saw the original trailer for Fortnite, I thought, this can be quite interesting, and the fact that they've completely switched gears is understandable, but I'd say tragic.
I played an early build. I got access, a friend gave me access to an early build like a couple of years ago, I think, and it was the best produced game that I saw no mass appeal for. Like, it was such a, like, I couldn't see how you could sell it. So it's probably for the best that they changed it, but like the squares, the tiles are, I guess the grid that you could build in were just so huge. Like, it's probably pretty much like a 5 foot by 5 foot square. So all you could do is very simple buildings. You couldn't build them out very complexly like you could in Minecraft or other games. And it was so cartoony that I don't really see it being all that appealing in the zombie survival crowd. And it was so kind of cartoonish, and like I don't say it really appealing to a hardcore audience or really a casual audience, because it wasn't cutesy and simple like Minecraft. So I think they might have seen that it was possibly an interesting game, but not really marketable. So and then they saw, you know, the rise of H1Z1, you know, battle royale and stuff like that. So they just kind of switched gears, and obviously it was the best decision they could have made, because they made tons of money, and I think they even beat PUBG for a couple months at least.
Yeah, I think it's getting to the point where they're overshadowing it, but at the consequence, we're seeing kind of a pattern that the gaming industry normally gets in. We remember you know, the dark days of the modern military shooter, where Call of Duty came out, and then every single game said, we've got to be the COD killer. Battlefield suffered because of it. There was Homefront, and it took Spec Ops: The Line to essentially stop it, which was kind of amusing. It took a small German production, a game that would have been put in the bargain bin elsewhere, to essentially wake everybody's eyes. To wake everyone up and say, yeah, this is kind of stupid. It's kind of fucked up, dudes. Look what it means. And everyone looked at it and was like, oh, okay, this is kind of disturbing, and basically killed the trend.
Yeah, and the trends seem to be coming faster and faster. I mean, we all remember the MMO trend where EverQuest and then World of Warcraft made it, you know, a really, really profitable, big budget industry, and then all these other guys came into play. We had the Rifts, and we had you know, Guild Wars and stuff like that, and all these other
Guild Wars, Terror, Scarlet Blade. If you're that obscure,
There was that more recent one that kind of fell flat. I forgot what it was. And then EverQuest Next died. I did not expect that.
Yeah.
I guess I just realized it was a dying
Secret World
genre or something like that.
Was it Secret World?
Well, Secret World was another one, but there was that other that one that was supposed to be the WoW killer in space. It like went free to play within a year. It was well made, but it was just
WoW killer in space. Well, it's definitely not EVE Online because that's just a spreadsheet simulator.
I forget what WildStar, I think it was.
Wow.
I think it went free to play pretty quickly, if I remember correctly. But yeah, obviously that ran out of steam. Once the Dota came out, Dota was the original Dota was a Warcraft 3 mod, and then League of Legends basically did that mod only better in its own game, and then Dota 2 came out, and all these other guys, some of these
DC. There was DC doing their own thing. What was it called?
I forgot. It was something, the Infinite, I don't know, something. But
Infinite Chaos. No, God, what is it?
But yeah, there were some of these that came out so late that they end up...
Infinite something. Oh, pardon me. Hang on. DC Infinite Crisis. That was what it was. Yeah,
and there was Sins of a something. It was made by the guys who did Sins of a Solar Empire, Sins of the Dark Age, or something like that. And that was the game that actually tried to spin it up and merge the mobile format with a RTS, which sounded really cool. But I think after its actual final release, it lasted like just a couple months. It was.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was. Went live. Yeah, it went live May 8th and died. They ceased development on June 30th. They basically killed it within 2 months of the final release. Yeah.
Jeez. I mean, I'm looking at Infinite Crisis's page at the moment, and it released late March, and it was gone by August.
Yeah, like those guys that they were in a constant.
And keep in mind that's with a license attached.
Yeah, I mean that was a very bright trend that burned out, and this new battle royale is come out faster, and it's burning brighter than those seem to have. So it's not looking good.
Yeah, but that also means it's going to burn itself out quick. If what I'm hearing is true, that Call of Duty is not going for single player and instead going entirely for multiplayer, which will include a battle royale. This is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing too.
It might put me off Call of Duty altogether, because the reason why I play those games is for the single player, which is kind of weird. I get that, but those single player games are highly entertaining, personally.
Ironically, or
yeah, I will say ironically. Like you can't take the story seriously. I mean, I kind of had to go into the World War II one with a bit of seriousness, because, hey, it's kind of hard to ironically go into a story where millions of people died in an actual event less than a century ago. It's kind of hard to go in with an ironic mindset in terms of that one. But
it's an interesting gamble. I mean. I know it doesn't quite live up to the narrative excellence of Dynasty Warriors, but I could see there's some enjoyment.
Well, I mean, I've got a wide variety of tastes. Like, I like my high art and all that stuff, but I also like being entertained. I mean, Nier Automata, one of my favorite games of all time, and the best game of last year, personally. Yet, when you look at my taste, you'll find out that my favorite film of all time is not something by Lars von Trier, not Antichrist, not There Will Be Blood, not Grand Budapest Hotel, but Dread 3D.
Really?
Yeah, my favorite film of all time is Dread 3D. That's that. In fact, your reaction kind of sums it up. Just kind of a bit of kind of like a quick click, and you start questioning, like you said, really? And yeah, it is, because it's entertaining, and that's kind of what I want at the end of the day.
No, it's a great. It did exactly what it needed to do. That's what the movie was, and that's actually a rarity these days.
It's awesome. It was an awesome film. I saw it twice.
Yeah. I need to watch it again. I definitely liked it, but I think I might have been victim to the overhype a little bit. but it was definitely a good film. But that's the kind of thing. Like sometimes you don't have to have the over the top, crazy, epic adventure to be very, very, very good. Sometimes small and effective is better than big and stumbling.
Yeah, with it going possibly multiplayer only, I think that'll be like I think it'll be the last time I play the series, because I play it for the single player. I hate to be that guy. I've since Black Ops 1, I've gone into it expecting entertaining single players. It's why Modern Warfare 3 and Ghosts was such a drag. I hated those games. Ghosts is one of my least favorite gaming experiences of all time.
Yeah, I mean, they've been phoning them in for a while.
But at least you can get some sort of entertainment out of it. I mean, I can't call Black Ops 3 phoning it in. I mean, I know a lot of people dislike that game, but when you look at the overall package, what you're getting, it is bloody great. Like, you've got a full campaign, you've got zombies, you've got zombies in the campaign, which is a bit ridiculous, and you've got pretty decent multiplayer features, which include a theatre mode, which is becoming increasingly rare. In fact, I don't think any game has come out last year that has had such a feature, and that's sad. That saddens me. And I don't mean like photo features. I mean like a full-on theatre set. That'd be great. I mean,
Black Ops 3, I didn't particularly like multiplayer component or single player component. There were some interesting ideas in there, but I can't deny that it was a very, very fleshed out full package. Like, you don't see many games that just have so much content to do, and then it's like that.
It's even greater value if you get the Zombie Chronicles DLC, which I found quite weird that like 2 years later, just as soon as World War II was coming out, Treyarch were like, oh yeah, by the way, go on Black Ops 3. We've just released the Zombie Chronicles. You get more zombie maps.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to do that, but they did it anyway.
Yeah, that's respectable for sure.
Yeah.
But I think this is a side effect of what is it? It's statistics driven decisions where you don't realize this, but they're watching everything that people do online. They know what, they can see every single player, what achievements they've gotten, how much time they play on single player things and how much time in multiplayer. And honestly, it's not really a fair comparison even, because how many people are going to really play the campaign 5 times? Not really. Not many people are going to do that, but they will play 500 hours of multiplayer, you know?
It's very rare for people to replay a Call of Duty single player game. There are some exceptions. COD 4 being one, World at War, maybe Modern Warfare 2, maybe Black Ops 1, and that is kind of where the list just sort of ends. Maybe Black Ops 3, because they actually enabled co-op in the single player campaign.
Yeah, that was actually great. I mean, that was something that was missing in I loved Spec Ops, for example, in Modern Warfare 2. That was probably the last of the series I really truly enjoyed, but the fact that they added that in as a feature, it's like, why not? Your story's you're all broken anyway. Who cares if there's a couple more people? Yeah,
and it's a lot more fun with people. It kind of took me back to the Halo 3 days, like you could match 4 people in. And it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a philosophy Halo never lost, but it was just nice to have.
Yeah, and we're actually seem to be getting a co-op resurgence, and it's off topic, but we seem to be getting a little bit of a co-op resurgence now. There was that time where, like, Halo and some other games, there was like the couch co-op thing, and then, it was a sort of resurgence in the early 2000s, but then toward the end of the Xbox 360 PS3 generation, and especially the beginning of the current generation of consoles, despite the improved technology, which would have allowed, essentially 720p or, at least like 480p screens, if you were to do split screen, which is bigger than the, essentially four PS2 screens stacked up on top of each other, equivalent of resolution. Despite that, we saw so many games just drop, split screen and same screen co-op and things like that for online. And it was a bit sad because like I grew up, playing, Super Nintendo, NES games and stuff like that. But we seem to keep getting that back a little bit. I mean, we're getting like full on true RPGs with same screen, like with Original Sin 2, we're getting like full RPGs with same screen co-op, and it seems to be coming back in a certain degree, at least.
A Way Out as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. Like, they put split screen at the core of it, which is kind of a double-edged sword. Like, on one hand, it could work. On the other hand, what's to stop you from destroying the tense drama of trying to unlock something by just looking at the other screen? So basically being the scumbag of the family.
Yeah, it probably was a decision of just demographics, like how many people would play this online. They realize that they need to have the same screen thing. Like and unfortunately split screen is just a necessity because people don't have, the battleship setup. I had that at one apartment. It was great, actually, having two screens back to back. But yeah, there's no real way to get around that. People want to play together, and it's a co-op game, so you kind of have to have that feature, even though it'd probably be ideal to have it, online with different screens. But yeah, I do want to play that at some point. I just haven't gotten into it. I love Brothers. Brothers was a really good game.
I thought Brothers was all right.
It was a surprisingly good game considering how simple the gameplay was.
Yeah. Yeah, it did what it needed to do.
Exactly. It was the we may be the Dark Souls of podcasts, but that was the Dread of video games. There you go. Brothers is the Dread of video games. Indigo Gaming 2018.
The fuck are you talking about?
All right, what's our? We have last topic.
No, we've pretty much done the last topic. Closing statements. Anything you want to remark on?
No, just best luck with your channel. I don't know if we're gonna do this with any regularity, but yeah, I mean, I
got anything in mind this week?
I always live stream on Wednesdays, so if you swing by my channel, usually around 8 p.m. or so Eastern time, whatever that equates to in your time zone. I usually try to do unique and weird or old games. I don't like play PUBG or anything like that. I play like last time I played Shenmue modded, which is about as weird and off kilter as you can get.
Well, yeah, it's Shenmue.
Yeah, Shenmue.
The game where you swear to revenge your father the 1 second, and immediately the next second you swear to protect a little kitty.
Best game ever. I mean, like protecting kitties. Best mechanic ever.
Who's the director of that game anyway? What is it? It's not Yoko Taro.
Yu Suzuki. Yu Suzuki, I think.
Yu Suzuki.
I that's the name that came to mind. Hopefully I'm right. My memory's not great anymore. Yeah, Yu Suzuki.
I was gonna say it's not Minoru Suzuki, but no, he's just a very scary bloke. Minoru Suzuki, not Yu Suzuki. Sorry.
Yeah, no, he's a lot in the industry. I think he actually worked on one of the games that's featured in the arcade of that game, which is kind of wild. The Space Harrier or whatever. But yeah, no, I'm working on a really, really big video essay that'll probably be out in the next few weeks. Still in the pre-production, writing, stuff like that. But yeah, that's pretty much what I'm known for, is the big, ridiculously long, videos. Not nicely by LHudson standards, but fairly long for what I do.
Well, mine's more of a shouty old man talking about how something he believes is not very good. It's not your more factual, well-researched, opinionated, calming presentation.
Yeah, you're the oldest 20-year-old, 20-something-year-old video essayist.
No. I'm the screeching banshee.
The get off my lawn video essayists.
Yes, which is kind of ironic considering you're older than me.
It's funny. Well, I was a lot like that. Actually, probably around your age. Actually, not too long ago. But there's just so much negativity that even though I cover things equally, like I bring up bad things and good things and stuff like that, and I do. I've done videos where I'm like, yeah, the old one did so and so better, but I can't hate things because I realize how much work goes into them. Like even something that got something wrong, I'm like, this required so much work to go into it that I can't really hate it, because it's like, this was like something like 10,000 man hours went into this, and I may not like it, but I can at least appreciate the work and what it did right, you know?
Well, I can't think that way. Maybe I'll think that way in the future, but at the moment, like, my counter to that is, wow, you did a really bad job.
Yeah, I mean,
not you.
No, I got you. I got you. I mean, yeah,
you do good jobs. You do good jobs.
The game dev, like
youtube.com/Indigo Gaming Channel.
No, like, it probably helped because I actually made some games to realize how freaking insanely, like, if you've made a game, like a game of a decent scale, it's a miracle that it ever happened. Like, game development is such a grueling, intense, time-consuming process. Like, you can spend, like, you know, to put it in perspective, the 3D models that they made for Transformers, each one of those 3D models took somebody 6 months to make, just to design the model. Yeah. Like, that's how intense just like 3D work and mechanics and kinetics and everything like that go into making models. And then we had to make those interact. And then not only that, but Transformers, making a movie Transformers, honestly, is easy compared to making a video game about Transformers, because Transformers, you just, you know, is one big cutscene, but a video game actually has to function. So maybe that's why I have a bit more sympathy for bad games, because or games that are, you know, I don't really cover that many really bad games, but the ones I cover that I don't fully approve of, I at least have some idea of how much absolute, you know, torture went into it. And I can usually always try to find something to like about it. But what's happening on your channel? You're working on your new video?
Well, I'm going to be doing some personal work, but needless to say, I've got a script ready to go. Just need to record and scarper through crap ton of footage, finding the right stuff. And hopefully I can get it out by the end of this week.
Oh, that'd be great.
That would be wonderful, so I can finally put it to rest, because needless to say, if I was to rate this particular subject on a scale of 0 to 5 stars, I would give it minus 432.7, or whatever absolute 0 degrees is in Fahrenheit.
It's pretty cold, man.
It is, honest to God, one of the worst games I've ever played. So, and believe me, I am gonna make sure that is reflected.
Sounds like it. Well, thanks for inviting me onto the podcast. I tend to have like you know, breathers and then sprints for my videos, and sometimes I just have to kind of no life it, because you know, we both have jobs and stuff like that. But
yeah,
hopefully we can do this, if not regularly, then like semi-regularly, at least like maybe once a month would be kind of cool. That'd be a good starting goal, and maybe more often.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Depending on, yeah.
All right. Okay. YouTube.com/LHudson and YouTube.com/Indigo Gaming.
Indigo Gaming channel, or just indigogaming.net. Either way.
Bollocks.
It's all good. We're just link it at the end or whatever.
We'll do. Good night, everyone.